morning. I'm sure everybody's doing good today. Today is one of those days. I didn't want to train this morning. When I say I really mean my body. I did not. Because I train every day, whether I like it or not, whether I want to or not. It's just how it works. So, we're going to train. When I say we, I'm alone in this garage. If you're watching and you're with me here today, thank you. But remember, a person's training ethic is individual for them, even if you play on a team. So you still have to have your own. You have to have your own work ethic. And that's something that sometimes you have to work on every single day. So your work ethic. I'm not a perfect human being by any stretch of the imagination with that. So at times I can be fairly lazy. So I've been an athlete for most of my life, or I've identified with being an athlete, whatever that means. Excuse me. So I've always had to maintain a certain level of preparedness, because it's important to, when somebody calls you on the phone and says, hey, do you want to do something really fun? It's important that you're prepared for this. So a long time ago, I had this mentor who calls me up on the phone. He says, hey, I need you to do me a favor. For this guy, anything. Anything. And I told him so. Anything. So, he says, okay, I need you to, in 2 weeks, play a gig for me because the drummer in my band just quit. And I have a wedding. Don't worry about it, he said. It's a bunch of songs you know. Now he's talking about songs that are hard to play. Jazz, blues, fun stuff. But this guy, he liked to take liberties and play for fun, but he was still a serious enough musician that it caused me great consternation, because I had not drummed for 10 years at this point. And I told him so. I said, hey, like, I'm probably not the guy. And he says, nah, you're the guy. You could do this sleeping. I had 2 practices. And then we played. Now, he'd tell you this. It's not the best drummer. Sure did have fun though. And the reason that I had fun was because I knew how to drum. It's not that I was going to be good enough for anybody to come along and go, man, I want you to play in my band. I was good enough to play in his band. Because he had watched me grow up playing music. So, my music mentor knew that it would challenge me. He was bolstering my confidence by saying things that maybe weren't true, like, oh, you could do this in your sleep. It's true, though. I mean, I'm a better drummer in my dreams than I am in reality. So, but what's the point of that story? Preparedness. Preparedness. When I was a kid, I actually used to practice in my room with my drumsticks on books. So my parents could not hear me. Because it was driving them fucking batty with me drumming on tables all the time. But when you give your 14-year-old kid caffeine and he already has ADHD, oh man, what a wonder drug coffee is. So, oh, slow down, Sparky. It's cold. I'm grouchy. I don't want to train. I'm not dressed for training. But I don't have to like it. I just have to do it anyway. So, what was the difference in me drumming on books as opposed to being a kid? Because drumming on books is not the most fun a person's going to have. It just isn't. It was fun for me, but I was practicing rudiments. Those of you that know what rudiments are, congratulations. Those of you that don't, congratulations. That's what I was doing. Just as I had been taught to do with my trumpet at relatively the same age. And for that, my parents built me a separate room. When I say built me, it was for my grandmother, but I got to use it an hour a day. They demanded it. Lock yourself in, practice, they said. We spent money on these instruments, which that was important to them because my parents, it's not like they couldn't afford it. It wasn't the point. It was the value, not the expense. That's what they were trying to really get you to understand from that era. Things have value. So, why do I train anyway? Because of that. That work ethic. Everything has value. And certainly that I, as a person, as I was growing up, saw that in athletes who they were working towards something, and some of them went on to achieve it. And it's, you know, it's a thing that when you grow up around people who are really good athletes, you think that they're the best athletes in the world until you get a little older and you start kind of getting outside, and then you find out that they're not the best athletes in the world. But if you've ever been lucky enough to play alongside of some of the best, I've been on sport fields with some amazing human beings. The difference between good to great is that the amazing human beings go to a certain point, and then the ones that learned how to work and stay emotionally stable were the ones that rose to the next level, and then the ones that remained uninjured rose to the top. That's how it works. So if you have the mental capacity to withstand the level of training, of rudiments, of just simple movements that other people may find worthless and or boring, you'll discover that you have the ability that other people don't. And you'll have it for the rest of your life. So it doesn't matter whether or not the perception is that you're the greatest athlete that ever lived, because you're not. You're going to get old and die. And before that, you're going to be one of the shittiest athletes that ever lived. That's how it works. Sorry. So, as I move around, the center of, oh man, I'm in trouble. Short people got no reason. Challenges of moving around are that your opponent's not going to stay stable. So you go this way, he's going to go that way. But you go this way, he might go that way, and you get stuck in a corner. And so when you move, you have to focus on a few things. So when you train, you have to understand why it is that you don't want to hyper-focus, although you do. So it's an interesting thing. I have ADHD, so I discovered years and years ago what hyper-focus was by studying it. And I mean, as a kid, I had lived it and leveraged it as a way of learning, cramming for tests, which, much to my frustration, my classes required me to actually do work as opposed to just pass their stupid tests. Man, were my parents super strict about me doing work, because I didn't do a shred of it until they discovered that I wasn't doing any work, but I just simply memorized shit as I walked into class, and it was like, shebango, here you go. And they're like, it's weird because he should be cheating or something. So they didn't see it, but I did. So that's a thing. Visual acuity, what to look at, the kind of vision that an individual has, and it can be trained. So I had it because I went into hyper awareness as a kid from a violent attack. Now, whatever that did to me doesn't matter. That's not why you're here. But if you're fighting and you understand that you're gonna be in a world that becomes exclusionary, so you won't feel pain, you won't hear things, you won't remember half the shit that happens in combat. Like, you'll have to sort it out because your memory goes. Shit happens fast. It's super intense, especially when it's real, when it's life-threatening. So, if you haven't had life-threatening experience, most of you have. If you haven't, you owe yourself the experience. Go bungee jumping or something. And so then you have to be able to see what your opponent doesn't see. So you have to, first of all, get them to focus on you. And sometimes, I said, you'd never see my eyes. That's not true, man. I looked at my opponents all the time. I made faces, I cracked jokes. It was friendly sparring. But I was always observing this one area of the body. Their feet. Just like in soccer. So, I remember being on the sprint one time, and I knew I had limited time to make this shot. Guy was right here. I picked my speed up, and he stayed right with me. I kept the ball on my right side, and he was going to slide tackle me or cut in at any moment. And I only needed this much room to make the shot, because I knew if I got that much room, he wouldn't be able to do either to stop it. He'd go for it, but he wouldn't be able to stop it. And so I hit a gear that I carried around internally. I just knew I was faster than this guy anyway. And all of a sudden I was there, and bam! It was a cutback shot. So I just needed to get past him just a little bit more so that he would commit as I went to swing, but he was nowhere. He was this short on the ball. And I coffin cornered a shot against a guy where I never looked at the goal. I knew where it was because I knew where I was. I never looked at the goal. I was only looking at his feet. Years later, in a sparring match, I was working with an individual who was taller, stronger, more experienced. But he did this thing. He did this repetitive thing with his footwork. And I thought, I wonder what would happen is when he stepped if I went like that. And I'll be darned. Because what happened was, and that's just called a foot sweep. What you saw me do there is a foot sweep. So if you're observing an opponent and you're looking at their feet and you move in and out and you see that they put an inordinate amount of weight on that front foot when they come forward and you time this move, as I did. So, boom, that right there will catch that foot and you'll be looking at your opponent either on this side or this side. So when this individual came forward and I swept his leg, I stopped right there. And he was looking at me. He got up. He bowed out. He thanked me. He was superior in every way. Every way. Except for the forms competition. I probably beat him every time. But in fighting, if it had ever gone to the oh my God stage, I wasn't going to stop this guy in a month of Sundays. But in a prize fight, you don't have to worry about being killed. So you get to do things that are way different. But if you are in any type of combative situation, you're always going to have to be observant of a person's foundations, including yours. So one of the things that you have to learn how to do is move. And sometimes it looks a little bit like dancing with the footwork, but you're luring people with your footwork. So Mantis, a lot of Mantis imitators, they learn this back and forth thing, and then if they go to a real class, their teacher will have them do rows. Row training sucks. Not because the training itself isn't very good. Row training sucks because it's really hard. That's my opinion, of course. In reality, maybe it's not that hard. But row training allows for you to do things in isolation. So, footwork. See that? So now just put yourself in a room that's, 40 to 50 feet long, and that's what you'd be required to do. All the way down, turn all the way back, turn all the way down, turn all the way back. And you'd have somebody in front of you the whole time. You'd get down, and then you'd come back. So that's row training. if you're doing it by yourself, remember, you're trying to move from one side of a spot to another. But it's not always going to be in a line. So sometimes you can move off angle. Sometimes you'll circle. Sometimes you'll switch. You never know. It's all dependent on what your opponent is. So, Mantis footwork then. If you're going to step, at first basic, it looks heel to toe. Sorry. See the stance? So, it's not the only footwork in Praying Mantis. But if you think about today's modern combative need, you're either going to be coming forward, you're going to be diving in, you're going to be punching as you come in, you're going to do all kinds of stuff. So Mantis says, get low. Because in all those situations, if you force a man to come down to you when he's throwing punches, he's weak from underneath. So that exposes all his vital organs for you to punch, kick, knee, do whatever. So, boxers stand straight up a lot. They get on the balls of their feet. They'll move back and forth. Just on the balls of their feet. But hey, you know, when you watch Wonder Boy, remember, he's like this when he does that. You see where I'm wide? He's not up like this. So you gotta remember that these guys, they've got legs that are trained to stay in low stances and then move quickly in them. And that's what Praying Mantis originally had to include, was footwork that matched its handwork, because it was using Northern Shaolin footwork that was just inferior to the handwork. Not that footwork itself was inferior, just the handwork was, it was unseen. It was, the techniques were faster because it didn't use the traditional back and forth kind of long range attacks that would be met with very similar responses. What it did was it leveraged new thinking of repetitive, constant attacking by individuals that maybe were typically smaller. So you would hire guys that were super fast to employ this technique, but they wouldn't fucking stop. So unless you killed them, which back in those days, that was the game. So they would use Praying Mantis only if they had to, and it was known as the treasure which guards the mountain. You try going up the mountain and taking something from dudes that are highly trained and they have all day to practice. Like, even if it's a soccer trophy, fools, the kids at practice are going to kick your ass. Sorry if that hurts your feelings. Some of you guys think, oh, I'm never going to kick my ass. On the soccer field, you're going to get your ass kicked by guys who you can't believe how good they are. And they're not big. Well, Messi's 5'7", 5'5", I'm 5'2", he's a hobbit. What is he? All right, so I'm tired. I'm walking around and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Jump kicks. That's what you're doing. So, it's one of those things you won't see me do too much, if at all. But along with strong foundations comes the ability then to do fancier techniques. So, since I have an ACL that has been repaired, but is now failing again, more than 20 years later, spinning and jumping and all that's really scary and less than exciting. So I have to manage the kind of kicking that I would do. But Praying Mantis has a kind of interesting... Wow, did I just lose my train of thought? Because I'm focusing on the stupid computer. Praying Mantis has an interesting principle to bounce, and it really means to be, you know, able to jump and do something, not bounce like a tiger. So you don't have to get too high up in the air. And a lot of martial arts styles use jumping movements. So some of the ones you see today that are kind of cool, you know, are the Superman punch, bang. So, you know, if you just imagine, and your first instinct is to, you know, but it comes at you fast, you know, it's like, and he closes the gap so fast that you go like this, but he hits you from right up here, not from here, and it catches you right in the temple or behind the ear, and oh my God, does that hurt. So, off a jumping motion. And then the next time you see it, you're like, oh yeah, and you go to, because I'm just going to grab and tackle you, and he knows that. He goes, boom. So that's his next move. So his first move comes in, woo, closes the gap, Superman punch, fights his way back to the center of the ring. Like, he's like, and he gets ready to throw it, and when you, boom. And that's how you sucker a guy into it. You got to be an actor. But those are the two things you want to have in succession. Even if it's not one right after the other, it's one and then shortly thereafter the other. Because he's going to remember what the Superman punch looks like in its delivery and its takeoff. And he's going to react. But if you do this enough time, it'll look the same as the knee strike. So his reaction actually walks him into the trap. So then you just practice both, such that they're both really, really good. You'll have something. So again, to make a jumping motion work, you kind of have to disguise it. So, you see that right there? So as I go like this, I do that. So, if I have a couple of times walked forward, and that, remember, walking forward is interesting because it puts me at risk. Unless I have something up my sleeve, and that's why you're backing away. It fucks with your head. So, you've seen me jab. You've watched me come forward. And as I do that right there, I switch my attack. Bang. So remember that each time I jab, you just simply, and it hits that left. But the next thing that happens exposes you to the right in the pipe. So it's going to hit you square. No matter what. If you can go like that in the right moment, it's still going to hit you at the top of the head, side. 99. You might not think that, but lots of guys get knocked out by that punch. But that's just using like a jumping technique that is based on a principle to balance in Mantis. Now, that's not what they don't call it to bounce in other martial arts, I don't think. I don't know, maybe jumping kicks, jumping techniques, flying kicks, flying techniques. They're all based on some type of leaving planet Earth, okay? So okay, some basics. So, and these are interesting because I've watched some of these kicks start and set the tone for black belt matches. Super easy to learn, but most people never take the time because it looks hokey. So you put your left foot forward and you go bang, like that. And again, if you've disguised your movements, so if guys who are Muay Thai fighters are used to seeing that, and you walk up and your first movement looks like that, what they're likely to do is get ready to absorb or deflect such that they can quickly counter something, expecting what's called a T. We would call it just simply a defensive front kick, which just simply means a kick off the front leg. It doesn't mean it's done defensively. So, you know, then it's just like it's a front leg front kick, or who cares? I don't care. So when you kick and that, and then boom, and he goes like this, you're trying to get the ball of your foot under his chin. That's it. You're trying to use his head like a soccer ball. So you want that to be like on your laces. It'll be a nice feeling, okay? In Muay Thai, it's even a nice feeling. That's why they have those ankle stabilizers. Hell, I don't know. That's probably keep the bruising away as they mash your face with something like this. So, and then whether it works or not, I'll let you sort out. But it works off of this principle of bounce. So, just a simple idea of how to get that in. And again, you can see, if I step back again, you can see that I'm not going to be able to hit the target. Okay, so again, I'm going to try to hit this thing right here. Okay, see where I'm aiming for on the human body? Like here or up. So that's the area, but I'm specifically going to aim low just because. Okay, and again, left foot forward. All right, so that's from way back here. Aim a little higher. Okay. Okay, it kind of scared me because I know I'm going to eat crap live on camera. Okay, so the idea is that you close the gap on a kick that when you deliver this one, it's only going so far. So they start adjusting immediately. If your opponent is right in front of you and you go like this, this is the quadrant that opens up. So you have that motion, then it goes boom. And they're going to go backwards. And from there you can use whatever techniques to drive them into or out of an area. Okay? And that's a front jump kick. So that's different from a double front jump kick. Because sometimes you'll use wang wang motion. Okay? Forgive how terrible that looks. But the idea is 1 followed by 2. 2 kicks. And both of them powerful. That's why it comes off the back leg. So as you're driving a guy backwards or he's moving backwards and you go 1, you then immediately 2. And what you're trying to do is close the gap to get him to react. If he's already done so, as you're moving in and you've gone 1, he's going to eat that. But at a distance that's that far away. So as I go 1, my next kick 2, you see how far that penetrates in? If he stopped his movement, he's going to get hit by that second kick anyway. If he has moved forward, he's going to get hit by the first kick. And if he's moved forward and he gets hit by the first kick, I guarantee you he gets hit by the second kick. Okay? So you're trying to get the guy on a double front kick to stand up again. So as he steps back and gets ready, that first kick, if you hit him with it, gets him in this position because you just kicked him in the face. So he's like, boom, oh shoot. So that's the first kick. Boom, like punting a soccer ball. Your second kick, your foot never comes down because your momentum carries you. But that's the one that's hitting him square, either in the face, neck, sternum, wherever it goes. It's up for you. So you have that whang whang thing. Pretty easy, actually. It looks weird. So that's the double front jump kick. So again, that's jumping movements. All right. So for some of you, you could practice mantis style drills where you sit here and go. That kind of stuff. And that should wear you out eventually. Maybe not. Wears me out. All right. The knife. One of the things, if you're going to do knife play, is that you're going to want to develop based on a set of legitimate foundations. So, excuse me, jumping and kicking is hard for me. So like that, it's of course. So, one of the things that knives do is poke. But a lot of people, when they poke, they're gripping their knife so tensely they can't make these deft movements. So, you're dependent on finger guards and that sort of thing. But if you're taught this, so as we're fighting, see where it is right now? And I go, one. Do you see where the weapon is right there? So when I attack one and I pull back, the momentum that I use pulls the weapon back in my hand. It's a hand switch technique. Again, start here, go out and back, and it's just in your palm, okay? So if it's in your palm, no matter how hard you poke something, it's not going to slide. So that requires actual knowledge and deftness. Most people will tell you who watch stuff like this, that's just silly. Okay, but in my world, those are the people that have just been poked in the throat because they don't understand that I'm not going to miss that. Okay? Because I've done it correctly, like I was taught somewhere along the road. Oh, you figure that part out. So let's just get there first. I'm not going to have you do the hand switch. I want you to practice just keeping it there. So you see this claw that we learned in Praying Mantis? So you can kind of adopt that on the weapon. It's not literally what we're doing, but you can kind of see where it fits in there. And again, I'm demonstrating how if you hit something that's solid, your hand's not going to slip. And you are going to make a report, especially with a weapon designed to do so. And then it's easy to switch back. It's not a difficult motion. I had a moment there. Oh. Not a difficult motion. Go ahead and ridicule me for losing the ability to speak. my native language. So, all right. So we're just going to practice poke, poke, poke. Just like jab, poke, 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 out. Oh, I know. Some of you are like, hey, turn your knife around. I don't know. You do what you got to do. Okay? Maybe that's not what you're saying. Some of you might be saying, hey, you're really just going to poke, poke? I don't know. But here's what I do. This is the furthest distance between your face and my knife that I can legitimately think about closing the gap. So I'm going to have to deal with your hand parts first. That's for dang sure. So as I come through this right here, I'm going to be moving in a way that once I deal with that, my next motion, now I just need you to see where this went, okay? It's not perfect. But from this position, as I'm here, the next thing happening is here. And again, just from that position alone, okay, but it's going to slip, but compared to where I'm hitting, it's going to slip. I mean, and that's from not being perfect, okay? That's how it works. It still works. Now, if you never learn that, you will never come up with that because you'll be short. Because this grip extends your blade by a few inches and allows both the turn of the wrist and the protection of the butt of the hand, the heel of the hand, so that if done correctly, it can be moved from. You don't have to do that, but that is, again, a long-range technique where you won't slip when you're closing the gap. Once you're inside, you won't be using this. It's a long-range technique. Once you're inside, the grip can change to grips that are better for different techniques. So if you have somebody that's, when you've closed the gap and you've struck and they close the gap on you on this hand and you hand switch and pull, they're likely going to end up following you over here as they try to gain access to this hand. So as you've pulled them, you're gonna see where I'm joining hands? This is called a join hands technique. Now you'll understand why this is at some point as you practice with your buddies, how this is superior than most of the escapes that you may have learned. And I'm talking about when you have a knife in your hand and you're fighting for it. So you've poked, and the guy who just takes a blade in the eye without so much as a care in the world comes forward on the arm and you pull the knife back. Do you see what you're doing? As you pull the knife back, you're grabbing, you're pulling in. Now he's still tracking, and if his wrist is on there, you're going to be on top of his wrist. You're still trying to join your hands. As you pull, you're going to step, and he's going to go that way because you're going to have his arm. Once you have that and he starts to move, you're going to yank this weapon out while holding the arm that you have with the other hand, and then you're going to do a series of moves that looks like this. So remember, his head is right where this ball is. So if I've come in, 1, and you're coming at me, 2, and I pull away, 3. See what just happened? You've created a really fatal error. That's up underneath. And then that's on top. That's on top. If I want to, we can continue to play with that. But that's how you use hand switch or position switches. that are good for different types of situations. And the joint hands techniques are learned in concert with those type of movements. So once you feel like you're fairly accurate with the weapon, okay, then you can kind of start doing what they would teach you to do in fencing. So I'm not going to teach you to fence. I'm not going to show you fencing footwork. So it's the last time I'll reference it. But I still have to close the gap on my opponent. So I'll move. So a quick movement, you see that, is preceded by the footwork. And then as I move out, I'm expecting an attack on this hand. Look, that motion there, again, person getting grabby, even if they've grabbed me, this may not get me out of that, but it gives me a better opportunity. But you're never going to get that. You might think you are, but I've actually practiced this, and I'm leveraging your overconfidence. I hope. So, that kind of stuff. So, once you get, see the difference? Poke, come back, attack. Poke. Now look, practicing a movement that I'm going to say high, low, low, high. You'll hear it called defang the snake. Okay. I have seen this technique mostly, almost exclusively done with two quick jabbing type techniques. A lot of the times it's straight to the hand first, followed like that kind of motion, because you hit that hand first if you can. Guys that are really, really fast will hit you and move back anyway, hoping to draw your attack and then pick the attack. So they come in and they know you're going to attack them back, but they're going to pick that first movement with their knife. See where I've got a little deeper when I pick so I don't slide? So the footwork though is always important. So again, doesn't have to be technically, the technique that you use in the beginning, but you should still be fast and able with a poke, like a jab, as opposed to a hard slice or a jab, because it's not technically a poke what you're doing when you do this technique. From one perspective off of the way that I've shown you. So again, you're always in this technique trying to hit into the eye socket with the tip of your blade. So you've practiced, okay? But then if you're going to move with any distance, you see, now that was different. I just poked. Well, from an injury standpoint, that's vast difference. Vast. So I'll let you sort that out. So then poke and then attack. Poke, attack. Poke, attack. Poke, attack. Poke, attack. Those type of movements. Blades are fun. Maybe not. So, hook, grab, punch. Boom. These that I'm doing for you, I'm doing slowly, statically, and if you want to criticize me for my movements, please do, and then you go off and practice them to sort them off by yourself, sort them out by yourself, or cast them off. So do them yourself. 1, 2, 3. and or hook grab punch, and then bong, or bong da, 2, okay, 1, 2, dai zhang, okay, dai zhang, du sao. Oh, there that is, that fake little mantis hand. I'll let you figure that one out on your own. Du sao, okay, du sao. Qua, okay. Quas, upper block, right? Upper block. Du sao is that pressing in thing. So those are some really basic movements. So you want to get good at those because those are the foundations of some of the early mantis techniques that you'll learn. From a traditional standpoint, it's really good to have those because hidden within those movements that seem kind of weird once you learn how to use them is in fact the way to use hands as an entry point to closing the gap on an opponent. So, and that's why if you have really great kicking skills, you want to complement those great kicking skills with really great hand skills of some sort. So, good luck with that. I'm still working on it, so I'm only 54, 55 soon. Oh well. I don't know what time it is. I'll bet it's time for you to go home, though. I'll be darned. Get out of my house.